Commence primary ignition.
Welcome to Unlimited Power. My name is D-Rod, and thank you for watching one of my pre-release guides for Star Wars Unlimited's new and fourth set, Jump to Lightspeed. Now, Jump to Lightspeed pre-release begins on March 7th, where you're going to be introduced to new cards with new mechanics, new leader actions, new abilities, and new tokens. You're also going to see the growth among factions in Star Wars, like Rebels, Resistance, First Order, and Imperial. If this is your first time watching one of my guides, I'll let you know that we're going to be looking at commons and uncommons within this set that can strengthen the synergy with the leader you choose to play. There are going to be some great rares and legendaries that fit really well with some of these leaders, but the chances of you pulling a rare or legendary that does that is going to be a lot slimmer than your chance of pulling a common or uncommon in your 6 booster packs that can really fill out your deck and the theme you're working for. With that said, let's begin to look at some of these leaders and see what kind of fun we can have on pre-release day. Let's talk about Captain Phasma, one of my favorite characters from the Star Wars sequels, as well as some of the comics and books where she's depicted. I was really excited to see her enter into Star Wars Unlimited. Now, Captain Phasma kind of has one of those effects we've seen across other different tribes in Star Wars. She represents the First Order, and her ability is going to work with most cards within that type of faction. Now, there are not that many First Order cards in Star Wars Unlimited, but this set certainly has the most. Let's take a look at her ability. You can take an action to exhaust her if you played a First Order card this phase. Deal 1 damage to a base. So, similar to Vader, there's a condition here in order to use this pinging ability. It doesn't cost you a resource, but you still have to play a card. So she's not as fast as Sabine, she's not as limited as Vader, but she can only deal 1 damage and it's to the base. So if you have 5 or more resources, you can deploy her into the ground arena, where she is a 4/6, and on attack, if you played another First Order card this phase, you deal 1 damage to a unit, and if you do, deal 1 damage to the base. So this is all going to be direct damage. She's pretty straightforward. I love the picture they chose from her because it just is exactly what she wants to do. She's here to get in your face, hit you, and she wants to do it as quickly as possible. Let's take a look at some First Order cards that are going to be obvious picks, but learning how to use them and what they do. The first one is the First Order Stormtrooper. It's written in the name. It's a 1-cost 2/1 that says on attack and when defeated, deal 1 indirect damage to a player. Indirect is one of the new abilities within Jump to Lightspeed, and it says that the player you hit or the player you choose to take the indirect damage, they assign 1 unpreventable damage among their units and their base. This is really great because this damage is going to stack up pretty soon, and it makes your opponent have to make decisions and can essentially take them out of their own thoughts of what they were thinking to do next turn and put them in a different predicament than they expected based on the board. The next card is the Special Forces TIE Fighter, a 2-cost 2/3 that says when you play it, and if an opponent controls more space units than you, ready the unit. Good towards the late game. It's fine if you have it in your opening hand because it's going to trigger that First Order ability of Captain Phasma. So again, these are some low-cost cards is what you're looking for with Phasma. You need the tempo. You want to make sure you're hitting a card every turn you can. Next is Von Reg's TIE Interceptor, a 3-cost card that is a 3/4 that says while the unit has 4 or more power, it gains Overwhelm, allowing it to deal excess damage to your opponent's base if it kills a unit. And it also says if you have 6 or more power, it gains Raid 1, meaning you could have a TIE Interceptor that's hitting for 7. It's another First Order ship, so it's going to trigger these abilities. With all this indirect damage, you want to take advantage of some other cards like the Decimator of Dissidents. It's a 4-cost space unit that says, if you've dealt indirect damage this phase, this unit costs 1 less to play. So if you can attack with that First Order Stormtrooper on turn 2, you can play the Decimator of Dissidents really quickly on the second turn for 3 instead of 4 resources. It has the Overwhelm mechanic, it has 5 health, it's a great card to get out early. The next is the Hunting Aggressor, a uncommon that is a 3/6 space unit that just increases your indirect damage that you deal to opponents by 1. That extra damage can make a big difference with some of the other cards you're playing and other cards found within this set. For Vigilance, we're looking at the Onyx Squadron Brute. It's not a first order card, but it has a solid mechanic. It's a 2 cost, 2/3 space unit that says when defeated, you can heal 2 damage for your base. Your opponent's not going to want to kill this thing too quickly unless you haven't taken any damage. So it's not a bad one to get out there and make your opponent have to make more decisions on how long do they want to leave this brute in play. The next is the Interceptor Ace, has the ability of giving one of your space units grit and +2/+3 with the new mechanic Piloting. Piloting is going to cost it quite a bit here, but you can essentially play it for a different cost than its ground unit cost. When on the ground, it's a 2/3 with grit, but when it pilots it's going to give you a +2/+3 and Cav grit as well. For command, we're going to recommend Captain Phasma to go with Phasma. I am glad that this is an uncommon because it's a 5 cost, 5/6 first order trooper that says when played and on attack, you may give another first order trooper +2/+2 for the phase. So this means you could play this Phasma the same time you deploy your other Phasma, and now instead of hitting for 4, you're hitting for 6 with that Phasma. And then you can just keep trading Phasma swings every turn going forward. You also have the Kajimi Patrollers, a first order TIE fighter that creates TIE fighter tokens. Unfortunately, the TIE fighter tokens do not have an affiliation, but this will again trigger your Captain Phasma leader abilities. If you want to keep that damage going, the Kimogilla Heavy Fighter allows you to do that. It's a 4 cost unit, which I really like this space unit, especially when you have a ground focused leader, because when you play it, it deals 3 indirect damage to a player, and they have to exhaust each unit damaged this way. So your opponent's either taking that base damage, which is great with an aggressive strategy, or they're having their units take it and slowing their own units down from hitting your base. Really like this type of card. Torpedo Barrage is just another one. In an aggressive style of deck, you're going to want to make sure you have some cards that can deal some damage. If your opponent has less units or no units in play, then this 5 indirect damage that you can do for 3 resources can really make a difference on your aggressive attacks. So, because they can just pile it onto their base. In the villain aspect, we're going to recommend the TIE Bomber because it is one of the perfect 2 cost cards. It's a 0/4 space unit, but on attack, it deals 3 indirect damage to the defending player. And with that 4 health, it's going to be really hard for it to be taken down within a few turns. The next one is the TIE Dagger Vanguard, a first order ship here. It is a 2/2 that when played can deal 2 damage to a damaged unit. Because you're using indirect damage on some other abilities, you should be able to add 2 damage to a unit, hopefully kill it. And lastly, in the non-aspects, we're going to recommend the retrofitted airspeeder. When Phasma deploys, you're going to want to put something good out that's going to get us either some attention or really back up what she's doing. The airspeeder allows you to ambush in, hit a ground unit at, with a 3/6, or you have a potential of hitting a space unit at a 2/6. Either way, it can be another threat that your opponent wasn't ready for when you were deploying your leader. And lastly is the Flanking Fang Fighter, a 3 cost fighter that is a 2/3 space unit, and while you control another fighter, it gets raid 2, allowing it to hit for 4. So these are the cards I'd recommend playing with Captain Phasma at your local pre-release. Let me know how it goes in the comments below. Did you get a lot of first order cards, maybe a legendary or a rare that really set it up for you? I'm interested in knowing, and I wish you luck at your next pre-release, and may the Force be with you.